The sentence exploded like lightning in the clear sky, not because of who said it, but because of the time, context, and the person who said it. Cha Eun-woo, an icon of visual perfection, a symbol of sobriety, a top actor, an idol who has always kept a tidy distance between public and private life, suddenly became the center of a whirlpool of emotions when that brief but smacking statement went viral. In a matter of minutes, fans' phone screens were filled with the same single sentence, quoted, interpreted, debated, and embraced with a variety of feelings. There was silence. Someone smiled bitterly. Some are angry. Some are just relieved. And some are wondering, what exactly happened? The crux of the discussion that made the entertainment world shake was actually simple and could be summed up in 2 minutes. Cha Eun-woo spent the holidays at the home of someone he referred to as my girlfriend. But those 2 minutes left thousands of questions, millions of speculations, and a sea of emotions. For behind that brief sentence, there is a long journey about image, industry pressure, fan expectations, and the courage of a human being to choose his own happiness. It all started with a moment that seemed ordinary at first. Vacation. Words that sound light, but for a public figure like Cha Eun-woo, vacation is not just a pause. It is a strategic decision, a limited space that must be guarded from camera lenses and prejudices. When the issue circulated that Eun-woo was spending his New Year's holiday not abroad, not in a luxury resort, but in a private house, the public was still calm. Home can mean many things: a family home, a relative's house, a friend's house. But the calm collapsed when the fragment of the sentence, my boyfriend's house, came to the fore. The first reaction is distrust. Many thought it was a misquote, a mistranslation, or even a fabrication. Cha Eun-woo's name has always been synonymous with prudence. He rarely, almost never, indulges in his personal life. Every interview he answers with a secure smile. Every sensitive question he diverted with intelligence. So when the sentence came up unceremoniously, the public asked, is this really the same Cha Eun-woo? But over time, piece by piece, the story began to come together. Not through a big press conference, not through a long official statement, precisely from the little things: his more relaxed attitude, his different smile, the way he talks about rest and home in a warm tone. All that implies one thing: there is a new calm that he has found, and he no longer wants to completely hide it. What makes this news even more disturbing is not only the existence of the boyfriend, but the location, the boyfriend's house. The house symbolizes intimacy, trust, and acceptance. Spending a vacation in someone's home means passing through private doors, meeting a world not built for the public. For a celebrity, it is not a trivial decision. It was a strong emotional statement, as if to say that he chose simple warmth over the glitter that had surrounded him. Fans split. Some feel betrayed by the fantasies they've been embracing. There are those who feel hurt because of a silent hope that collapses. But not any few chose to stand on the side of Cha Eun-woo's humanity. They see him not as a public property, but rather as a young man who has the right to love and be loved. On social media, two great currents collide, between a sense of loss and a sense of pride. Loss of illusion, pride of courage. The Korean entertainment industry is known for its unwritten rules, yet harsh. Image is everything. Romantic relationships are often considered a risk. Many idols choose years of silence, even hiding personal happiness for the sake of career stability. In this context, Cha Eun-woo's sentence felt like a step against the flow, not with frontal resistance, but rather with quiet honesty. He does not indulge in details, does not name names, does not provoke sensations. It's just an emotional fact. Speculation is inevitable. Who's her boyfriend? Since when? Are they celebrities or ordinary people? Is this relationship old or new? But interestingly, in the midst of the frenzy of speculation, Cha Eun-woo actually remained silent. He does not feed excessive curiosity.
His silence seemed to say, the most important thing is not who he is, but what we feel. An attitude that is rare, but that actually makes many people end up respecting that limit. There is also a deeper analysis, the change of life phases. Cha Eun-woo is now at a ripe career point. He was no longer just a visual genius, but rather an actor recognized with his own voice. In this phase, many public figures begin to reorganize priorities. It is no longer just the pursuit of popularity, but the search for balance. A holiday in a girlfriend's house can be read as a symbol of that shift, from the spotlight to silence, from the stage to the living room. International media also highlighted. Big titles are popping up, some sensational, some trying to be more balanced. But in all that, one question kept coming up. Will this change Cha Eun-woo in the public eye? The answer is complex. For some, yes, he now feels more real, more human. For others, it may take time to accept. But history shows that honesty, while painful in the beginning, often builds a stronger foundation in the long run. What is rarely discussed is Cha Eun-woo's own point of view as an individual. Imagine years of pressure to always be perfect, always available, always up to expectations. In such conditions, finding someone whose home feels safe is a godsend. Vacation is no longer a matter of going far, but of going home, to a place where he can be himself without a mask. The phrase, "I spend the holidays at my boyfriend's house," sounds simple, but it is full of existential meaning. Fans who voted in favor began to change the narrative, from "why" to "hopefully." May he be happy, may he be well, may he not lose himself in the storm of opinion. This support slowly creates a warmer space, signaling a small but significant change in fan culture, from ownership to empathy. Of course, not all wounds heal instantly. There are fans who need distance. There are those who choose silence. There are those who express disappointment. All is valid. But time is often the best mediator. When the thrill subsides, what remains is the essential question. Do we idolize Cha Eun-woo as a fantasy or as a human being? In the end, this news wasn't just about Cha Eun-woo and his girlfriend. It's about the boundary between public and private, about the courage to take personal decisions under the spotlight, and about the evolution of the relationship between idols and fans. 2 minutes of core discussion is enough to light a fire, but thousands of words are needed to understand the flame. The wave generated by the statement has not yet subsided. It is precisely after the first days have passed that the effects feel deeper, like ripples of water that seem calm on the surface but keep a strong current underneath. Cha Eun-woo's name continues to be a topic of conversation, not just as an idol or actor, but as a symbol of a public figure's changing attitude towards his personal life. Interestingly, the longer the public talked about the phrase, "I spent vacation time at my boyfriend's house," the clearer it became that this was not just a Morris gossip. This was a cultural event. Many entertainment observers considered the recognition marked an important moment in the relationship between the current generation of celebrities and their fans. If in the past, the distance was kept as thick as a wall, now it is slowly turning into a window, not wide open, but enough to let in light. In various fan forums, the discussion changed direction, initially filled with question marks and emotions, but now it is beginning to be filled with reflection. Many admitted that they were surprised, not because Cha Eun-woo had a girlfriend, but because of the way he presented it, not dramatic, not defensive, not excessive, as if he were saying, "This is my life, and I'm telling you the truth." This attitude actually makes some fans, who were initially disappointed, begin to understand the difficult position he has faced so far.
Some old fans even reminisced about Cha Eun-woo's career journey from the beginning, how he grew up under the label of too perfect, how his every smile and gesture was analyzed, how his personal space almost never really existed. In that context, the vacation at the boyfriend's house is no longer a matter of romance alone, but a form of silent resistance to the pressure that he has been carrying alone. On the other hand, the entertainment industry is quietly learning from the public reaction. Agencies, producers, and the media are beginning to realize that today's generation of fans is not quite the same as it used to be. There's a collective fatigue towards false images. There's a longing for honesty. Cha Eun-woo, consciously or unconsciously, exemplifies that measured openness can create new dialogue, though not without risk. Speculation continued, but the intensity changed. From hunting down the identity of the boyfriend to discussing the future of Cha Eun-woo's career. Will this affect his role in the upcoming drama? Will the ideal image that has been attached to it shift? Some analysts argue the opposite. The emotional maturity he shows can enrich his character as an actor. Real feelings often give birth to more lively acting. In the midst of it all, Cha Eun-woo kept to his schedule. He appears at events, greets fans, works with the same professionalism. There was no sign of remorse, no attempt to retract his remarks. This firmness gave a strong message. He stood by his choice, not with force, but with consistency. And consistency is often more convincing than 1,000 clarifications. Many fans have finally come to one simple conclusion. The happiness of their idol does not have to be synonymous with loneliness. Love is not always a threat to a career. Precisely, for some people, love is a source of energy. If Cha Eun-woo finds peace in a house that doesn't belong to him, maybe that's what makes him able to keep smiling in front of the world. Interestingly, the house narrative continues to be a central symbol of this discussion. Home as a shelter, not a stage. Home as a space without cameras, without claims. In a world that is always asking for more, choosing to go home to someone is a brave choice. And it is that courage that ends up making many, although initially shaken, choose respect. Now, after the dust has slowly settled, this news remains as a marker, a sign that Cha Eun-woo is entering a new chapter in his life, not one announced with a big headline, but with one honest sentence. A marker that idols are also people, and man has the right to choose where he spends his vacation, with whom he shares silence. And perhaps that's precisely where the real appeal of Cha Eun-woo lies today, not only on his perfect face or his brilliant career, but on his courage to say one of the simplest and most difficult things at once, that behind all the highlights, he just wants to spend time at home with the people he loves. The story isn't really over yet. It was only after the public narrative began to calm down that the meaning behind Cha Eun-woo's statement felt wider and deeper. There's a kind of collective consciousness that is slowly growing, that what is happening is not just courtship news, but a portrait of changing times, a change in the way we perceive idols, privacy, and honesty. Within days of the statement spreading, there was a clear shift in the tone of the news. If at first the media competed to highlight the sensation, now more are raising the psychological and human side. Cha Eun-woo is no longer placed as a perfect figure without gaps, but rather as a young man who chooses a break from the noise of the world. The choice to spend the holidays at a girlfriend's house is read as a form of emotional break, something that is very rarely talked about in an industry that demands relentless stamina. Many observers of pop culture highlight one important point. The phrase was not said in self-defense. There is no tone of justification, no attempt to soften the facts. It is delivered as it is. And precisely because of that, the sentence feels more honest, more grounded, and ultimately more difficult to attack. Quiet honesty often turns off sensations on its own. In international fan circles, the discussion developed in a more reflective direction. Many wrote that they grew up with Cha Eun-woo from debut to present and realized that time changed them too. The hope that used to be full of fantasy is slowly being replaced with empathy. There's a tacit recognition that loving idols does not necessarily mean binding them in solitude. Support is now no longer about having, but about letting go. But of course, not all sounds become soft. There is still those who feel disappointed. There is still those who refuse to accept. But interestingly, the differences of opinion are now side by side without a big bang. It's as if the public learned that feelings can be diverse without necessarily negating each other. Cha Eun-woo, in his noiseless manner, forced all parties to mature with the situation. From a career point of view, many are waiting for the impact. But day after day passed and no great storm came.
Contracts are still running, projects are still being announced, brand support doesn't necessarily disappear. This is an important signal that the industry is beginning to adapt, that not excessive openness, conveyed with dignity, does not always lead to the destruction of the image. The most touching came precisely from the spontaneous reactions of fans on various platforms. Someone wrote, "I'm crying, but I also smile." Some said, "I'm disappointed, but I want him to be happy." The sentences show an honest inner conflict, and that kind of honesty rarely comes up if it's not fueled by something real. Cha Eun-woo, without drama, opened space for two-way honesty. Increasingly, the public began to see the statement as a symbol of transition from the era of idols who must always be available to an era where personal boundaries begin to be valued. Cha Eun-woo didn't proclaim a revolution, but his actions were strong enough to start a conversation, and it's that conversation that slowly changes the way things look. Now, when Cha Eun-woo's name is mentioned, there is a new layer attached. Not just visuals, not just talent, but rather the courage to live honestly under the spotlight. It doesn't become less interesting because it has a personal life. Rather, for many, it feels more real, closer, although the distance remains. In the end, this news will be recorded as one small moment with a long echo. A short sentence that opens a big discussion, a simple choice that reflects the complexity of the modern entertainment world. And amid all the analysis, speculation, and emotion, one thing becomes clear. Cha Eun-woo isn't asking the world to understand everything. It just asks for space to be human. Perhaps that was the most powerful message left after all the hustle died down. That behind the searchlights and big titles, there is a heart that wants to calm down. And when Cha Eun-woo says he spent the holidays at his girlfriend's house, the world is finally reminded that happiness doesn't always need to be explained. It needs to be respected. But it is precisely after everything feels understood that the story enters a quieter phase, one in which its echoes work slowly, touching the consciousness of many people without realizing it. No more explosions of sensational titles every hour, no further clarification, no additional recognition. And it was that silence that made Cha Eun-woo's statement even stronger. Because in the usually noisy world of entertainment, silence can be the clearest form of assertiveness. Many are beginning to realize one important thing. Cha Eun-woo is not building a new narrative about himself. He's not trying to look mature, bold, or different. It's just life. And precisely because of this, his actions feel so contrasted to the industry that is used to designing every detail of the image. He doesn't sell his love story. He doesn't use it as a promotional tool. He left it to private property, only to be exposed a little because of the accidental honesty that later became the center of attention. Behind the scenes, industry sources began to whisper that Cha Eun-woo was indeed at a reflective point in his life. A busy schedule, endless expectations, and the demand to always be perfect slowly eroded the inner space of any person. In such a condition, the presence of a person who gives him a sense of home means a lot. Not a home in the sense of a building, but rather a place where he is not required anything other than to be himself. This narrative led many fans to re-look at the definition of closeness. During this time, the closeness of idols and fans is often built through illusions, sweet greetings, cameras' gazes, words that feel personal. But this event reminded that there is other closeness that the public cannot and should not have. The closeness that lives in the private space, which actually maintains the sanity of an idol in order to still be able to stand on the public stage. Interestingly, the younger generation of fans seem to accept this fact quicker. They grew up in an era of openness, where public figures also talked about mental health, personal boundaries, and life choices. For them, Cha Eun-woo didn't change, he just went on with his life. More resistance comes from old emotional wounds, from expectations built up over years without ever being spoken to.
Time goes on, and slowly this story goes from surprises to memories. But the former remains. It leaves subtle traces in the way the media covers, in the way fans react, and in the way other idols might see their own future. It's not impossible. Cha Eun-woo's calm courage will be a tacit reference to other public figures who have been caught between honesty and fear. Most importantly, Cha Eun-woo himself seemed undisturbed by the waves of opinions that came and went. No signs of excessive nervousness, no defensive attitude. This attitude gives the impression that he has come to terms with his choice, and perhaps with himself. Such peace is difficult to forge, and the public sooner or later can feel it. At this point, the big headline, "I spent my vacation time at my boyfriend's house," no longer sounds like an electrifying confession. It becomes a human word, a word that anyone can say. And perhaps that's where the most significant transformation took place, when Cha Eun-woo, the figure who had been placed on the high pedestal all along, took a step down to the same ground as everyone else. Finally, this story does not close with a scandal, nor with lengthy clarifications. It closes with acceptance, slow, not synchronous, yet real. Acceptance that idols don't have to be lonely to be loved. The acceptance that personal happiness does not necessarily diminish the public light. And the acceptance that Cha Eun-woo, with all his achievements, remains a human being who has the right to choose where he rests and with whom he returns home. And when the spotlight shifts to other news, one impression remains: that among all the glitters, the quietest courage often comes from a single honest sentence, spoken without the intention of changing the world, but slowly doing so. And after everything slowly unravels, one unspoken yet omnipresent realization emerges. This news was never really about who's her boyfriend. From the beginning to this point, the real core has always been one thing: the right to choose happiness without having to explain it to anyone. In an increasingly mature conversation, many fans began to draw the line between a sense of love and a sense of belonging. They realized that all this time, without realizing it, the industry had formed fragile relationships. Idols gave the illusion of closeness, fans gave unconditional loyalty. When the illusion is cracked, pain arises. But Cha Eun-woo's event actually opened up space for a healthier relationship, one built on respect, not demands. Some also highlight how that one sentence reflects the collective fatigue of the younger generation towards imposed perfection. Cha Eun-woo is known as a symbol of the media version of the ideal man: handsome, intelligent, polite, flawless. But it was precisely the symbol that had been trapping him all this time. By admitting that he spent the holidays at his girlfriend's house, he seemed to say, "I don't always want to be ideal. I want to be real." And that desire resonates far beyond the entertainment world. Some pop culture psychologists even call this moment a healthy crack. Cracks in the walls of the image that is too smooth, which allows the public to see the man behind it. Cracks that do not destroy, but give breath. In the long run, this kind of crack often prolongs the life of the careerist, because the closeness that is awakened is more sincere and more durable. Meanwhile, Cha Eun-woo himself continued with his rhythm. He did not take advantage of this moment to appear more often or explain further. His absence in the debate is precisely a message in itself. It's as if he's entrusting that acceptance process to time and to the maturity of the public. A risky belief, but apparently not in vain. Behind the scenes, fans began to divert their energy, from questioning his personal life to looking forward to his next work, from parsing gossip to discussing what role they would like to see from him. This shift is subtle, almost imperceptible, yet real. Sensations fade, appreciation persists. What remains now is a quieter yet more powerful narrative, that Cha Eun-woo didn't lose anything with his honesty. It does not collapse. It does not sink. He stood in the same place, only on a more honest footing. And the public, having passed a wave of emotions, begins to perceive it not as a loss, but as growth. If one day the statement is recalled, it may no longer be remembered as a shocking confession. It will be remembered as a small turning point, when an idol chose the silence of the house over the cacophony of expectations, and the world, although initially noisy, finally learned to listen. Because in the end, all the highlights will move, all the titles will be replaced, but one message will live on in the minds of many, that courage is not always present in shouts or big statements. Sometimes it comes in one simple sentence, spoken quietly, about holidays, about home, and about love that does not want to show off, just wants to be lived. And from that point, the story transforms into a mirror, not just for Cha Eun-woo, but for anyone who lives under the spotlight of other people's expectations. The longer it is talked about, the clearer it becomes that the public is actually reflecting on themselves, on the hopes they once built, on the disappointments that arise when reality no longer aligns, and on the process of making peace that is not always easy. Many fans began to admit perhaps the most surprising of Cha Eun-woo's statement was not the fact that he had a girlfriend, but rather that he dared to call the word home. That word feels intimate, warm, and very human. Home is not a showplace. Home is a place to unwind. And for a public figure whose life is almost always outside the home, on the set, on the airport, on stage, to say that he chooses to spend time in someone's home is an acknowledgement of the most basic need, to feel safe. Gradually, public opinion turned more philosophical. The discussion no longer dwells on who, when, or how, but rather on why we are so shaken when idols choose to be happy in a simple way. That question struck many. Do we love idols, or do we love the image we build ourselves? And if the picture collapses, is it their fault or ours? Cha Eun-woo, without preaching, seemed to push the public towards such adult questions. He does not demand understanding, but his action forces reflection. Many have finally realized that maturity in idolizing does not come from how hard we support, rather from how freely we give space. Interestingly, amidst all this, Cha Eun-woo's image did not fade. It just feels stronger, no longer fragile by gossip, no longer completely dependent on perfection. There's a new layer of serenity attached to his name. It was as if he had passed an unwritten test, a test of honesty, and come out with his head high up. Some fans even refer to this moment as a delayed collective maturity, a phase that must be passed sooner or later, that the idol will grow, love, and choose his own life, and fans, if they want to keep walking together, have to grow too. Not all are ready, but many try. Now, when Cha Eun-woo's name appears on the timeline, the reaction is different. No more panic, no more question marks. There's a calmer reception. There's a sense, perhaps, of a small, healed loss. And behind that, there's a new respect for boundaries that have often been overlooked. In the end, this news did not leave a scandal, but rather an emotional legacy. The legacy that honesty conveyed without coercion could pave a healthier path between the public figure and his public. That love, both from fans and from the couple, do not have to negate each other. And Cha Eun-woo? He keeps moving forward, bringing with him one simple truth that everyone has now heard, that behind all the spotlight, he is also a human being who wants to go home, sit quietly, and spend time with the people he loves without needing to make it a spectacle. And that's where this story finally landed, not on sensations, not on gossip, but on understanding. Understanding that happiness is not always loud, not always sparkling. Sometimes it just comes as a short vacation in a house, and the courage to admit it.